Hey guys, Paul from Radperformance here. This would be part 2 of the Quadrajet 4-barrel restoration. In part 1 I kind of touched on the 750 Rochester and the 800 CFM Rochester. They made 2 models. I showed you the 750. This happens to be the 800 that I'm going to use with a Chevy base plate to use it on a street motor. Then I'm going to be just getting a Quadrajet ready to use it. They're great carburetors for street performance, mileage, and just cruising around town. Very good on mileage and idle quality, regardless of what anyone says about it. Anyone who has a complaint about a Quadrajet, quite frankly, didn't know how to tune them. There was nothing wrong with them, ever. They were used on so many vehicles, it's boggling. Most of the times the overhauls were horrible, and people they just got a bad rap. And you really couldn't buy a brand new Rochester. In the 70s, when you could, you bought a brand new one, you never had a problem. It was those overhaulers that gave it a bad name too. So in any event, this is part 2. We're going to tear down this 800, and we're going to look at all the pieces, and then I'm going to soak it, and then after that it will be the reassembly video, which will be part 3. So we're going to get into this now. This is just a junkyard swap meet, carburetor you would find anywhere. I'll just go over it quick. The last time I mentioned, I don't know if you could see with some of the light through there. The way you tell an 800 is through the primary bores. There's a larger opening in the venturi. On a 750, you'll see the venturi come down, and it's consistent. The 800, it's a little bigger, but you don't have to worry about how if it's bigger or smaller. If there's a baby bump, a little hump right next to the booster, if you see the baby bump, meaning there's a larger area there and then the rest is kind of hogged out, that's the bigger carburetor. That's the 800. They only made 2, 750 and 800s. You're never going to probably find an 800 that was on a Chevy, which is why I'm using one off of a Cadillac and putting a Chevy base plate. When Chevy needed a bigger carburetor, they went to Holley's. So all their performance motors, the Vets and the Chevelles and whatever other options they had, they just went to a Holley carburetor. This was for their street versions, and they went to that. The other Buicks and Cadillacs, they needed bigger carburetors. They had the 800. So we're going to dive into this. This is a 77 Cadillac carburetor. Basically a flathead screwdriver will do the trick. You normally have 9 to 11 screws off of the top air horn. These back here go right through to the base plate. So these hold the base plate. All the others you're going to take out just go to the main body. And then we'll have a couple more coming up through the base plate. Just take this out. Always be mindful of the screws. A lot of these should have little split locks under the head. Obviously these carburetors have been molested and touched through the years, and stuff is missing, so we don't have them all. But when we go to reassemble, we can get split locks. Okay, I think this was missing a couple screws actually. Okay, so we'll go in here. In the primary, you'll always have 2 small screws that are beveled. Get a magnet, and then you can just pop them out. These are the style that are in the air horn. They hold it, so you don't try to pry it without looking in there first. So we're all good. I'm going to take this clip out here. The choke clip, this one's off actually. It goes down to the choke. And I think because this is damaged, this was a carburetor, but this little piece will have to come off anyway. So I'm gonna, when I clean it, I'm just gonna take it off now. This piece goes on here, and it holds the choke, and it operates the choke as it's going. So I think I lost the. Here we go. The little screw that holds. Keep all these pieces. We're going to end up cleaning all these pieces. There's an air diverter here for the primary and secondary. That also has the two screws that go in. I think, so let's get this guy out. Okay. I like to hold these separate. These are normally, sometimes they're a different length screw that holds the air diverter between the primary and secondary. Put that on the side. Okay. Grab yourself a 3/32 punch. That'll be the perfect to punch out the roll pin that holds the accelerator pump here. Always be delicate with it. There's no reason to manhandle it. And take your time. Always leave enough room between the air horn and the dowel pin to fit a flat blade screwdriver. It could even be a little one. If you hit it too hard and the roll pin literally touches the air horn, it'll just create stress to put the roll pin back in. You'll have to get needle nose and try to force it. To me, it just adds undue stress. So as you're tapping it, just make sure you leave enough space there, and then this piece will come right out. This is the accelerator pump lever that works off of the throttle, and this is the accelerator pump rod, and it pushes down on it. So keep that. We'll tank all this stuff to hold it. This piece I did not take off. This is the choke pull off. This is for the secondaries. When it's cold, it creates vacuum. It pushes this in, as you can see here, and it limits the air doors. Let it go back, and now they open. When it's cold, you don't want that. You don't want to floor the gas. It was basically for people who are, I would say, not savvy enough. When start a car ice cold, you don't floor the gas. It would pop through the carburetor and backfire. For those people who didn't know, GM created this so that it wouldn't do that. No matter what you did when it was cold, and you only have primaries, it'll never have that pop or backfire because you went to floor the gas on an ice cold car. So it was a neat little trick to kind of compensate. Okay, I'm going to take this out now, actually. This screw is stripped. There's a little screw that holds the, sorry, my tools have all, I was using steel wool to clean the metering rods before, and they're all over the place. So this screw is stripped. There's a little screw that holds the secondary hanger. This screw is stripped. You just probably use a needle nose or even a vice grip if you gotta take it off. I'll get another screw for this carburetor for that. See if this guy works its way out. Yeah, he's coming out. This little screw holds in the hanger that holds the secondary metering rods. So we'll have to get a better screw. And here are the metering rods with the hanger. This is an O. The lettering dictates where the orientation of the hole is. It goes up, I believe, from A is very high, all the way down to Z is very low. The higher the hole, the more reveal of this fine tip. You can see, I don't know if you can see the fine tip of the metering rod. So for performance, you'd want it as high as you can get. It'll lift this. Also, these as thin as possible to get the full amount of fuel when you have wide open throttle. We'll get that out of the way because it'll be in the way when we take this off anyway. And we're going to have to take it off. So let's see. This little choke rod here, it always gets caught up. Just make sure you fit through that opening. It comes right out. The emulsion tubes are still in place. Sometimes these tubes will fall out. Just use a brass drift and you put them back in and they'll be in good shape. So you have the idle and then the power over that go into the float poles, the power. So this is our air horn, very good. We're going to keep that here, and I may just strip this down a little more before we tank it, but right now basically it's good to go, so we can hot tank it. Okay, this is the gasket. I always try to take the gasket out in one piece. This was not a running carburetor, it seems. It was just bought out of swap meet, so we just try to keep it. We'll match it up to the new one. Here's the accelerator pump. I have a new one. This bellows or this gasket right here will be changed. I recommend, if you're going to do it, all the kits now will be for the oxygenated gas. Back in the day they had leaded even on these when they were running, and it was excellent for the carburetor. But the unleaded gas was a little harsher on it. Nowadays with the oxygenated gas, you have 10 or 15% oxygen in all the gas. It's horrible on these seals. So you definitely want to get a new kit, something that's not been sitting around for 20 years or more, to make sure that you get a high quality gasket. The seal, I mean, that it won't corrode with the new gas. A lot of times I'm going to do it on this, just get a new accelerator pump that's made for the oxygenated gas. They have a lot of companies online. Just add a comment if you're curious about getting a new accelerator pump or even the high quality gasket, because I have them here. And you can overhaul it, just pull this clip out and then it comes out. That's the accelerator pump. This is the spring for the accelerator pump. Okay. So this is a little baffle for the additional reservoir. So this will come out because I'm going to clean it in here. And this would be the primary metering rods and the plunger. And this little pin rides against the part throttle adjustment right here. So this sits inside. This I can see is a little bent. I don't know if you can see it. So this power valve assembly on the primary side, the metering rods go in and there's a little nylon retainer. This should be perfectly square, and it's not. If you could see, it's not. So we will have to tweak this so that if you would put it upside down, it would sit perfectly flat. And this is leaning forward, it's falling. So we're going to have to just manipulate this to get this perfectly flat across. And when the air horn will go on, it sits flat across it, because this piece actually pulsates up and down on the spring with engine vacuum. So at idle and part throttle, this is operating your primary jets. It's releasing the metering rods to introduce fuel. When you come to a stoplight and the vacuum goes up, it sucks it down, pushes the metering rods into the jets, and you're just running on the idle circuits here. You step into it, vacuum drops, it raises this, fuel goes through the jets as well as the idle circuits, and that's your part throttle. So you hit the gas, comes off throttle, it's part throttle. You smash the throttle, these open, it lifts this hanger with the metering rods, it lifts it, and then you get the rear. So you have additional circuits back here that are not tunable outside of the metering rods, because they don't have jets that unscrew in the Rochester. In here, I'll show you these actually unscrew. And it's always recommended, you know, we should be, These are nice thin metering rods. We should be always in the 70s, maybe even 78 with today's gas. The oxygenated gas requires a little richer mixture to make the engines run smooth, so you don't have a lean miss. This part here is not, as far as I know, no one has a new unit. It's not a reproduced unit. So this is a good item that to just keep. If you get parts and parts carburetors, keep it. And you just use maybe a 000 steel wool, polish this up, polish the metering rods. The metering rods I know people sell, as long as they're not bent. A lot of times they're bent when they do mass overhauls and they just shove them in, put the air horn. They'll actually bend these over, and then obviously your idle circuit will suffer. So now we're at the main body. So this looks pretty good. I don't see any other issue besides that being a little bent. We'll go to the float, and I could see here that the needle and seat was hooked backwards, and I'll show you that right now when I take this guy out. Okay, this was hooked on through, I guess you would say, the front of the car, so it should be hooked in the rear, just on that area. It was hooked the other way. We'll put it back, and we'll get it right. This will be your needle. It goes into a seat down there. This is actually looks pretty good. I guess when they just put it in wrong. This float also, more than likely the float would be good. A lot of times the overhaul kits would have them. I know Standard High Grade makes brand new floats, very good floats, and you could test these. Just get some water, stick it in, leave it in there for a couple minutes. If it just bobbles to the top, you could even push it underwater and make sure it comes back, because if there's any leakage here, fuel will get in there once it's in here and it won't operate. So if you have any question, just throw it out. And I said a lot of the overhaul kits come with it, so you just throw it out. You just have to set the float height after. This is the retainer, the float retainer that goes right into the main body. This is actually held by the air horn down, and then it rides. As you can see, it rides. This I could tell right away that it was set way too high. I don't even know if this carburetor ran, to be honest. The way it looks, it did not run. It has a lot of clayish dirt in the bottom of it. So we got our float here. Now we're going to dig deeper. So we'll have the 2 metering rods, and we'll have the check ball screw, which is down inside in the carburetor, which is a flathead screw jack you're just going to use. So we can take that out. Yeah, it came right out, so that's easy. And either use your magnet or a needle nose. This came right out. This is the check ball screw. Screws in, and obviously this stem holds the check ball from the fuel overflowing into the boosters. So let's get this. There it goes. Here we go. My fingers can grab it. There's our check ball. We will reuse that, so we need that. That goes with this screw into that channel. Let it stay in there. What fell out, when I went over just to pull out the check ball, and the spring fell out. We have a new one, but the spring, like I told you, is right in the front there. That's for the primary metering rods. There's a spring under that. So we'll leave that for there. This unit behind it is the, like I was telling you, the part throttle adjustment valve. I believe they call it the adjustable, is it the APT or something? There's a term they had, but it's just the adjustable for the part throttle. I have a kit that'll, on the air horn, it's blocked. There's a little plug, if you could see it. A lot of these have it. You'll knock it out, you'll tap it, and you could literally adjust it as the car runs. GM set it, put the gasket on, it was done. Obviously now if you're interchanging them with engines, you can make it adjustable. That'll be for the tip in, the part throttle, off idle too, okay? We'll get that, we'll make all those little tricks. try to tune the carburetor as best as we can. Very good. I'm going to go down for the jets, just a flathead screwdriver. I don't like that. It's not feeling good, so let's see if this bigger screwdriver can do it. I don't want to nick the jet. There we go. As soon as you hear it crack, then you're good to go. A lot of times these things have been in there for years because the mass overhaulers, they never pull this stuff out. Okay, these are brass, so you won't be able to use the magnet. Just use the needle nose, and then you'll be able to get them out. So the only jets on the primary side to the Rochester. So just let me see my eyes here, what I can see if I tell you what they are. I always keep the steel wool handy just to buff it. And these might be a replacement. They're not, I don't see any stamping, but it could just be my eyes and the dirt. There's no witness. They're normally stamped in, and I don't see any witness marks on these, so I'll clean them. What you could also do is there is literally a hole right through it. That hole is a measurement, 77,000, 78,000, 78 jet. So we could even use the numbered drill bits to test it and see without marring it, obviously, just making sure that they fit in. Maybe after they're cleaned, a number will show up. So we'll have to look at that. And more than likely, I'll reuse those with the same primary rods, unless I see any discrepancy in how it was. Now I'm going to try to take out the old seat. I have a new one, but still always try to be conscientious when you pull it out, not to damage it. Once you crack it loose, and then you don't want to mar anything. This actually just looks dirty. It looks like it's in great shape too. But I have a new one. This is your seat. So your needle and seat, when it's in there, it just goes up and down with the float, allows the fuel, plugs it up when it has enough fuel as the float rises and comes down. So moving on. So we basically got everything off of here. One thing I'm going to pull off right now is this secondary pull-off, which we're not even going to reuse. So I'll take it out now and these secondaries from opening. Probably get this once I pull that other choke out. So this I'll put on the side. I'm not going to be reusing that. So as I turn this guy over here, I'm looking to get the two last screws out so I could separate it. This base plate looks like, I know there was tape on it from when it was at the swap meet, but it has some marks on it. I really don't know if that's, you know what, so this piece will come off perfect. Just show you, what I'm going to do is, we'll get a sanding stone. We can clean it first so you don't have to. Get any sanding stone. You go to any local hardware store, or even Home Depot, Lowe's. Very delicately, you can go across after you clean it. You don't want to gouge anything here. And these do a really good job. This sanding stone's a little caked up, so I'll use a fresh one. You go across it, it'll knock any high spot down. Then it'll show the low spots, but definitely clean it first. And this is great. Even I use these nice and clean. I use them on the tranny when you're doing the valve bodies in between. you can just make sure you knock down any high spots when you put your gasket on. Make sure, because this is the big culprit of vacuum leaks. Also, always use a thick gasket. Don't use the little paper gasket. Number one, it'll have vacuum leaks. Number two, it just radiates the heat. Always use the thick rubber type. It looks like rubber, but it's a composite, and has the little plastic inserts at all the holes to not crush it too far down. Those would be the best. Factory use them. And those little paper gaskets, factory never use. They always use the big thick ones. It helps with the heat sink. It really does. I could see right here that these were, this carburetor was just sitting there because this screw is all the way out and this is buried all the way in. So, okay. Here's our throttle bore. So this, for this carburetor, is fine. I'll probably just keep it. And like I said, I'll be putting a Chevy base plate on this carburetor of the same era. So this was a late 70s Rochester. I'll get a late 70s Chevy base plate, which I have here. I'll show you. This is the same. All you have to do is match the gasket. Takes this gasket. You'll be fine. I'll show you the Chevy one I have. This is, it's cleaned already, so I have this from a Chevy carburetor, and it could be a 750 Rochester. It wouldn't matter, because what matters is this guy. This is the difference between 800 and 750, the main throttle bore. And if you look here, maybe now you can see it. There's almost no hump here. You have the baby bump right here. This is bigger right here, and there's your 50 CFM extra. This is an 800 Rochester. That's the only difference, is that right there. You see the baby bump, you have an 800. If it's continuous and it's just choked down, when you don't see the baby bump, you know it's smaller. It's a 750. Simple, simple. I'm going to take my screws out over here. Put this back down here. So this will be my base gasket. And this guy matches right up to all the vacuum hoses. So this will be in great shape for that. So I'll use him. Like I said, he's already clean, so him I'm going to leave on the side. I may still just clean this one and just keep it for a later date. So this is for this one here. This was that secondary pull. I'm just going to put it out of the way. And then we have our choke. So I'm going to pull off the choke assembly. I have a new choke, and one that I know it works. This was obviously just, I think this is even seized. The screws are seized. So this was not a happy carburetor. There is a gasket in this, behind this screw. You will get it in an overhaul kit. Yeah, this screw was even corroded, and so there we go. So this goes right here, and right down in here where this piece goes in, you'll actually see there is a gasket right in there. It's like an O-ring right in here. If you had a hot air divorce choke, this was done because it literally pulled vacuum to wick the hot air through the hot air of the choke assembly here. This is plugged. There's no hot air. There's no vacuum. You still have the seal though, and because the carburetor has the passage. This is an electric choke, so it doesn't need to pull the hot air. The electric choke has a 12-volt wire that goes on the outside. Very simple, very clean, very effective. Electric choke works every morning. You never have an issue. it's really a nice, easy way to go. Okay, I believe this was cracked off already. This would be the fuel filter, the fuel inlet, a 1-inch wrench, take that off, same as the Hollies. So this will have a fuel filter and a spring, unless someone touched it. Let's see what we got. See what mysteries lie behind. Okay, yep, fuel filter is here. And there's a spring down there. Fuel filter and a spring. This is rusted and dried, so I guess, I don't know if that thing was even running. So that's our fuel inlet. That will also get cleaned. See it in there? I just see rust actually. So this had a hard life, I guess. So we're going to soak this. I'll probably lubricate the throttle screw, and I'll reuse him. I'll just lubricate so I can pull it out and make sure he works properly. We'll soak all these parts, definitely the air horn. When we get it out, I'll show you that too. We're going to blow out all these passages, all the idle. And I have a brush kit that I will put fine brushes down. These are the areas that, if from a good overhaul to just a mass overhaul, if you clean these passages out properly and you make sure you blow carb spray in and then come back up with compressed air, and they literally blow through the primary area and the idle circuits and these emulsion tube areas, you'll know that the whole passage is clean, because it doesn't take anything for gas to dry out and gum up, and you'll have an idle issue. And this will be the issue. Something in here is dirty. It's always either dirt or a leak. So good gaskets, and you clean everything out. This is my carb kit. It'll have all the extra gaskets in there and pieces. So I'll show you that when we get to overhauling it. So for right now, I'm going to put this in a bath. I use Simple Green and water. Normally 75% Simple Green, 25% water. Simple Green is cheap, easy. You can buy it anywhere. And it smells like pine. It doesn't kill your skin. The old stuff that they used to use worked great. They don't even sell it anymore. So they have new stuff that's safer for us, I guess, in the environment, but it doesn't work as good. So I soak it in Simple Green, leave it overnight. You can use Simple Green for anything, actually. You'll even strip paint if you leave it long enough. So it will clean this. It'll be dirt cheap. It won't be a caustic smell. And we'll be able to wash this all out with hot water and a brush. You can just use a toothbrush. You can use a nylon brush, whatever you want. You can use a parts washer too. I feel when you just soak them and leave them, it just gets everything soft and easy to clean. And then we'll come back and blow it all out with air, and then go over it and make sure everything is clean and dry before we reassemble. So there you go. We have an 800 base ready to go. We have our air horn, and we'll use our Chevy throttle blade. So the linkages and the tranny kickdown will all work for it. We don't have to fabricate anything, and no one will know. Unless you read the code numbers, no one will know where this carburetor came from. Perfect sleeper. You can put an 800. Everyone thinks whatever it is, it's stock. And we'll do some goodies. We'll make sure the air doors open all the way. These are just limited a slight bit. We'll get these to go perfect 90. We'll get these to go perfect 90. They're a little hanging right here. We'll adjust it, and there's a tension spring too. This is where all the power from the secondary comes in of these air doors. Either make them stiff, make them very easy depending on your load of the car, and then the gears, how you have it set up, the hangers, and obviously make sure we have wide open. It's a mechanical secondary. So once they open, this will open. It will suck vacuum. It's different from a Holly. They will mechanically open the secondary butterfly. It will suck this down. Every Rochester is the same. It's just this adjustment is where it limits it. some of them I've seen, they only open that much on some of the other engines. This was, like I said, it was a caddy, so it did open quite a bit for the 800. I could just see there's not quite, it's a little bit left that it can go 90. It's just about there. It's about 80 to 80 degrees. We'll get it to go 90. We're going to clean all this up, and then we'll come back with the reassembly. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Add any comment if you had any question, curious about any of the parts or what I did. If you had a question about your overhaul, I'll be more than happy to try to help you out and answer it. And have a good day. Please like and subscribe.